thank you for tuning in to our new YouTube series Q&A. My name is Sarah Archer, and I am joined today by Seth King, who is a senior sales executive here at RF Smart. Seth, I see that you're joining us from your back porch. Can you give us a little update on how you and your family are doing?
Yeah, we're all great. This is my little workspace on the back patio, probably the quietest place in my house with two toddlers running around. However, they do find their way around the outside of the house. And it's only screened in back here, so still get to hear them playing around quite a bit. But yeah, we're doing well.
Well, let's just go ahead and jump straight into our questions. So you're here to share a quick tip that can be used today. What is your quick tip?
Yeah, so the tip of the day is going to be the paperless warehouse. So it's often asked on most of our first calls is, we want to go paperless. How do we phase paper out of the warehouse?
So right now, in the midst of COVID-19, we're receiving emails from people asking things like, hey, we need to reduce paper usage in our warehouse in order to avoid contamination or in order to comply with a certain safety regulation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's some misconceptions too with going paperless, but I would agree in the current climate, it's a high topic of how do we phase, cross-contamination out of the facility and the warehouse, and paper is certainly one of those. So some customers think it's just as easy as saying, hey, why don't I just pull can I select the sales order from the device? And you absolutely can. And where a lot of people don't think is downstream. After you select that device, you go through the warehouse and you pick your inventory items. And now you drop all these inventory items off at a packing station. There's no way to properly identify those items. So now you have a bunch of inventory sitting there with no identifier of whose product that is. So we have a tool called Pick Planner. And what that allows you to do is assign orders to totes. So now you're able to pick task up from the mobile device, walk through the warehouse, pick those into identified baskets, which could be wiped down and cleaned, of course. And then those could be dropped at a pack station for a later packing and shipping process. Certainly the process before that would have required that you print a manual picking ticket out.
We call it Pick Planner for our NetSuite product, but there are several other ERPs that this fits into. Can you give some examples of that?
Yeah, so we call it Pick Manager and some of our other ERPs, but holistically, they're really the same product. What they're doing is they're looking at the orders in your system, and then they're creating picking tasks, which can then be pushed out to a mobile device.
Can you explain to us maybe, you touched on this just a little bit, but some misconceptions. So you think that you went paperless, or this is kind of the process of when you are using paper versus going paperless, what that looks like.
Sure, and I'm happy to show that. So what I can do is kind of walk you through that process here. So what we'll do is, in a traditional sales order pick, right, you may have your list of orders in your ERP system that need to be released out to the warehouse. And most often what happens is a warehouse manager or supervisor is going to go into that ERP, run some sort of search to identify the list of orders he wants to print out. It may be, for example, show me the FedEx orders today. And then they'll print out a batch of the pick tickets. And as you see here, you'll see I have a barcode here on the bottom of this pick ticket. And this pick ticket would then get sorted, placed in a basket out in the warehouse. And at that point, it now requires a user to take the RF Smart client and then scan that pick ticket and carry that pick ticket through the entire process, from order fulfillment to handing that to a packing and shipping clerk to then get processed for final fulfillment.
So there are some circumstances where you can use pick tickets to act as packing slips. And can you give us some details about that and how that can help reduce paper usage?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So a lot of clients, some of them just don't have the order volume perhaps, or the setup to go to a paperless environment with something like a tote system. But they do want to reduce the amount of paper that they're leveraging in the warehouse. So what some of the clients we've seen will do is they'll reformat this pick ticket here, which is just a custom form, and they'll create it in a way where they could repurpose that as their packing slip as well. So the pick ticket gets released to the warehouse, goes through the fulfillment process, and then at packing and shipping, rather than generating and printing off another document for a packing slip, they'll simply fold that pick ticket up and put it into that carton or package as the packing slip identifier for the customer.
Thanks for showing us what that looked like with the pick ticket. Can you show us what that looks like with an order planner?
So I think a good place to start here is, why don't I give a quick customer example here? And they're kind of on the front lines of producing and distributing masks. So they're a work safety company. And they're actually a customer that leverages one of our pick planning tools. So holistically, what this tool does, again, is it takes all of your orders in your system and then starts to release them out in the warehouse. And this is commonly referred to as waves. You might be releasing waves. And you might release waves in certain batches or numbers of orders. Maybe I want to release orders that are by a certain ship method, or orders that contain a certain number of lines. So what this will do is it's basically set up as a scheduling tool, and it will go and look for all the orders that are inside of NetSuite, automatically group them together, and then release those out as picking tasks to the end users over a period of time. And you could rerun these plans. So they might run at 8 a.m., they might run at noon, and they may run at order cutoff. So I've set up a picking task for us today. So again, instead of coming to a sales order picking transaction and scanning a pick ticket or multiple pick tickets to consolidate them, I can now come into our task picking transaction. And at this point, you could have tasks set up so users are just picking up the next available task. So I'm staying on my mobile device. I'm not ever needing to grab a pick ticket. I'm simply just selecting that next task. Now again, when you go paperless, there still needs to be a way to identify the inventory once it gets to a packing lane. So how we have that set up today is through a tote system. And a tote system really is just an identified carton or container. It could be a spot on a big wheeling cart. It could be a small basket with an identified barcode. And the concept is you're going to reuse this item over and over. And really, it's just identifying what's sitting in this particular spot on a cart or in this particular basket. So in this case, you can see I'm fulfilling 2 sales orders here, and it's going to tell me I'm going to need 2 totes because I've set this task up to require 1 tote per order. So it's now going to ask me for those totes. I could scan those totes, but I could also type those tote numbers in as well. And once I provide the 2 totes needed for these 2 orders, it now looks like a traditional RF Smart pick. So I walk through the warehouse, I'll validate my bin location, scan my inventory item at this point, and then it's telling me I need to grab 2 at this point. So as I pick 2, this is where, instead of having a piece of paper to identify where this order is, I'm going to scan the tote. And you'll see it's displaying that tote number there. So I would now just scan that part on the cart. So it's going to loop back now for the same item because it's on the other order as well, right? So if I grab this tote or this item, I can now drop it into tote 4. And now I've completed that single line for that particular order. So after I'd click complete here, I would update the fulfillment in my ERP. I would roll this cart full of totes over to a pack out lane where that user could then actually scan that tote to then pull up the inventory or order that's assigned to it at that time.
Something that our NetSuite customers, and I know some of our JD Edwards customers as well, are taking advantage of during this time, a different functionality is image capture. Can you just talk a little bit about image capture, how it works, how it's helpful, and the value that it can bring?
Yeah, so this is an exciting feature. This feature actually came really from our prospects and our customers. It was probably one of the highly requested customizations in the past of, hey, these modern devices are all full touchscreen and they all have cameras on them. So if you've ever looked at a modern warehouse device, it really looks similar to a smartphone today if you go with a full touchscreen option. They're more ruggedized, but they do have cameras built in. So customers were trying to figure out, how can I leverage this camera to benefit my business? And what we found is it's for some customers, it was, hey, after I create the shipment and I've got everything staged for this truck to come pick up, I'd love to be able to take a picture of these 3 pallets that are all wrapped up for my customer. That way, if the customer comes back and says, hey, I only got 2 or something's missing, I'll have this photo validation tied to this record. For other customers, it could be things like receiving documents. I'm receiving a purchase order in the warehouse, and maybe some sort of compliance document comes across, right? That needs to be captured. Well, without the image capture, what would happen is a client would have to take that document, hand it to somebody to then scan and then upload that into the ERP itself. So the way the image capture works now is rather than making it tied to a single transaction, what we allow you to do is simply take a photo and then tie that photo to a record in your ERP. That record could be the receipt record. That record could be the outbound fulfillment record. It's really up to you and how you want to leverage that image capture transaction.
All right, thank you, Seth, for sharing that tip and for spending time with us today. And thank you out there who are tuning in for watching. If you have questions, you can email us at info@rfsmart.com and we'll get back to you with the answers. And as always, we are here to support you. So if you have a need or questions or anything that we can do, please feel free to reach out and we'll speak with you soon. Thanks. Okay.
So what you have to do is